Hi all, welcome to this video. As you saw the title, building a functional website under 48 hours, we are going to be building a fully fledged website using various APIs and also having to build a backend to make sure the content is delivered properly to the user. Before that, let me get you up to speed. So recently, I stumbled upon this hackathon hosted by Locofy.ai in finecoder.io. What is Locofy.ai? It is a no-code tool aimed at designers and people who can design beautifully but fail when it comes to code. Locofy.ai has some awesome features in it, and the best part about this it is that you can build a fully responsive app or website just by designing, nothing extra, and it's still free. Coming back to our hackathon, I instantly started jotting down the judging criteria. So from the given information, we can infer that we need to build a working website, deploy it, add backend to it to make it fully functional, record a video which you are watching, and thankfully no specific problem statement is given. The judging criteria is functionality, quality, design, explanation, source code, and originality. So now that we got this prerequisite information, let's dive into building. First, the ideation phase. So I had 3 ideas ranging from easy to hard to make using Locofy. My first and simple idea was to create a plugin which automatically blocks me from using social media. And I even thought of the spun, creating a plugin using a plugin. You get it? Because Locofy is a plugin. My second idea, which would be medium hard, was to make a WhatsApp scheduler. I have already made this, but I made it for desktop and using Python, not in the web. I really wanted to make it using the web and Locofy, but third and the hardest idea that I had would be to create a website where you enter a Spotify playlist and you get the YouTube music video and a downloadable MP3 file. Now this idea came to me on one fine day when I wanted to see the music videos of a Spotify playlist but didn't have any software available on the web. So I had to manually download them from YouTube, which was a pain. When there is a problem and a pain, we developers step in and solve it. So I chose this idea despite it being more complex and hard as I could imagine. The reason I say it's complex is because I'm new to JavaScript development and also I have never in my life touched APIs, so I had to learn a lot. A lot to just get started. To start building our application, we first need a design. So I went into Figma and created this wireframe design of what the application would look like. On top, I would like to have the nav bar and a logo and a text field to the user to enter the Spotify playlist, a button to enter and connect with Spotify API and retrieve us back with the data. And these are components which would be the card which is displayed when our JSON data from API of Spotify is being received and modified into a beautiful design. This would be the image of the music from Spotify, the name of the song, the artist, and the button to download the MP3 file and the button to go to the YouTube video. So since we have thought this through from initially, we would exactly know what data we might require from the API and also how to process the inputs that are received from the user. So building a wireframe of a design would definitely help us to avoid many problems that we may face in future while developing. So before I went into the final copy, I just wanted to try out with color. Since we are going to use both Spotify and YouTube, I picked out the Spotify color palette and the YouTube color palette and mixed it and brought this design. So this design has some colors so that I can get the feeling of what the software would look, but then this is not the final design since this does not look like a proper web design. Now we will see the proper final design that I did. So this is the final design. I went over and did the homepage the software page, the SpotTube page, and the contact page. So this is the software where as you saw like in the previous wireframe path, it looks similar, but then I beautified it to give it some good feel. And also now that our design is ready, we must make it responsive so that Locofy can make it to a responsive website. I just give you a one short tip to help you using Locofy.ai faster. Use auto layout feature in Figma so that you can easily build responsive websites in Locofy using Locofy. So let's see how responsive my website design looks in the preview page of Locofy. As you can see, the home page, and when we shorten it to mobile layout, it automatically adjusts. This is because I have used auto layout in Figma such that it generates responsive layouts for me even in the mobile. I have also added the hamburger menu for mobile layout, and it's fully functional and responsive. I have made the card small so that even when we go to a mobile layout, it automatically adjusts it. And in website also, it looks fine. If you see here, everything is super responsive down to the mobile layout. This is because of the awesome plugin Locofy. And also I have tagged these using the Locofy's auto tag feature, which accelerated the process of creating the design responsive. So now that we have finished designing the software, we'll go on and export this code using Locofy. I'll select all frames, and I have also forgot to say that I have also made a drawer for mobile layout. As you can see, a drawer, so that it would be more responsive and functional. So let's export the code. We'll move on to Locofy Preview Builder, where we'll see a code in action. So here it is. Our website is fully ready and responsive as we have left it in design. But now, an extra feature, our code is also ready. If you look into this code, you would see that it's quite clean and not being cluttered at all. If you compare it with many other softwares that I have used before, like other no-code tools which does the same thing more or less, the code quality would not be on par with this Locofy.ai plugin. Once you got the code and you're satisfied with it, you can move over and export it to a zip file. Next, I'll show you the code in my favorite IDE. Now let's come to the architecture of the application, the ins and outs of it. If you see, our software has a front end which has an input field to get the Spotify playlist URL from the user. Now this input must be validated by our backend server to check if the URL is valid. Then the connect button must redirect us to Spotify OAuth login authorization page, which once confirmed by the user should redirect us to our website and must display the card component must have two buttons, one to get the music video from YouTube and another is to download the MP3 file. The way our YouTube music video retrieval works is we get the YouTube API and in the search query we send our music name and by artist into the search query of the YouTube API, which in turn sends us a JSON data with the video ID. This video ID is then sent over to a Rapid API, which gets the video ID and spits out JSON data which contains the URL to download the MP3 file from. Let's see our code in action. So this being the home page, one small change that I have done is add a Lottie file to the website so that it looks more interactive and good to the viewer. So this basically being the front page. Once we go to the SpotTube page, the button on-click function triggers, which routes us to this page. So let's check out the backend. So in the backend, from the Spotify API, we have a client ID, a redirect URI, so that these two variables over here are sent over to the API while receiving the JSON. To receive the JSON, everything over here is self-explanatory. I have already put comments, so you can go and check in my GitHub page, which I'll link in the description down below, and you can understand everything. I just go over the functions and explain you what it's about. So this function over here, on click, refers to the connect function. So when we hit connect function, the web page must redirect to the Spotify OAuth login screen, as I mentioned earlier. So to go over to the login screen, we go to this function auth, which from the Spotify API, it is recommended to use this URL plus the client ID, the scope being what we want to do with the Spotify API and what amount of data we collect from the user. Redirect URI is the URL which is being redirected after we finish our login from the Spotify screen, and state is just a random 16 number string. Now this is then returned as URL. This entire thing is found in Spotify API, and this is returned as URL, which is being put into our location.href. Does what it does is puts our URL into the top of the page and loads it, so our login screen is being loaded into the home page and then being redirected once we click the connect button. The check function. Now when we get URL from Spotify playlist, let's say this playlist, and we go over here to check it, it says us to connect. But if we put a wrong URL, let's say this URL, and then check it, it would alert us by saying please enter a valid playlist URL. This is the part where I mentioned that we need to validate the URL that the user has given. So once we enter the correct URL, we hit connect, which brings us to the next line of code, which is to store this ID. Now Spotify doesn't want this entire URL to be passed on to the Spotify API. It just needs this playlist ID. So what we do is to cut this out and store this in our local storage, so that even after redirecting multiple pages because of the login screen OAuth from Spotify, this ID, playlist ID, stays in the same web page so that we can take it back later. That is done using local storage inside JavaScript. Now the access token function. This function is very important because when we go on to click connect, the Spotify OAuth login screen does is it gives us this access token in the redirect URI. I'll show you how it's been done in the actual deployed version. Now I enter the playlist inside the playlist URL and check it. Since it's okay, it doesn't alert us, and let's go connect. So this is the page where you would see Spotify asking your authorization to agree that the user gives the data towards our app. Since I have already logged in, Spotify knows that it's me, and then the entered playlist, which was this application, is being produced. So as you see, the access token would be in this URL. Since this is the redirect URL that we have given in the code. So we take this access token and then return it to the API in order to get this music card down below. So this get songs function, asynchronous function, so that since it's an API, takes the API URL and the ID play here is the one that we stored on top, which is the playlist ID. So this API is fetched using the get function, and the authorization token should be filled in the header and should be added into the fetch function so that we get the result.json as data. Now, since we need two more APIs to be done inside the same card, we need to put a for each loop so that each JSON data is being iterated and also added with these two APIs. So now let me show you the YouTube search API. For the YouTube API, we have to provide the API key, and YouTube search API string is this, the URL is this, along with API key and the query search. And Q equals is the query search. What we have done here in order to get the music video of this song from Spotify is we have used the name of the song and by and the artist, so that it's like when you enter YouTube and search Happier by Marshmello, you get the first video, which would definitely be the music video that we need. So when we do it, and I have also added the max results equals 1 so that we only receive the number 1. Now this get search function is the YouTube search function with same the fetch function having the HTTP request get, and this being result.json. The YT data is also being enumerated, that is it is iterated so that we also get this downloadable MP3 file, which is done by this Rapid API. So this is the Rapid API which takes in the video ID of the YouTube video that we took and then gives out a JSON, gives out a rest.json, which is the downloadable link for the card. Now this is the card which you see. This entire code is just one card. But when we iterate this one card into n number of times, n being the amount of music that is in this given playlist, this card is iterated and then rendered n number of times. And inside the card, we have given the API's output. So in this case, the image is from Spotify playlist, and this is how we get the data from JSON, and this track name, title of the song and the artist who sung is also given in Spotify playlist. This download URL is given from Rapid API, and also the YouTube link is given from YouTube API. So in just a single function, when we click the connect, we use 3 APIs which should be in sync to give us this beautiful render and beautiful application. So if we go and test out this card, let's see that it's Happier by Marshmello, and let's go and watch if it's really Happier by Marshmello's music. This can also be said by using the download button. This download button, which then brings us this MP3 file of the same music video that we had. There are also a few limitations for these APIs. The first API, the Spotify API, only allows 100 music from the playlist to be displayed. And second, the YouTube API only allows 100 queries per user each day. So these are the only limitations that will be experienced by a user in our website. Lastly, thank you Locofy both for the hackathon and the wonderful software that you have created. People who are watching this video, if you think that this project is worthy of credit and I have actually done something well, please feel free to vote for me in finecoder.io. The link is in the description.